G'day, Steve Morgan here from ABT and Fishing Monthly magazines. It's been a while since we've talked to Australia's favourite Bassmaster Elite Series pro, Carl Jocumsen. And Carl, we've caught you in between tournaments now, mate, after a pretty rough start to the season for you, mate. How are you going?
Yeah, mate, I'm licking my wounds a little bit. Licking my wounds, but spirits are high. I've sort of rejuvenated the body after the last couple of days, and just once I get over that sort of tournament exhaustion and get my energy back and get a little bit of sleep, the spirits just get back on track again. But it's always a rough couple of days after you grind like that and don't get the results that you want.
Indeed, mate. As you know, I'm a pretty keen tournament follower for the US, and I want to give you my 60-second version of what I think's going on over there. Remember, there was that big upheaval at the end of last year. All of the big names from FLW and BASS that basically took up, followed Boyd Duckett and Gary Klein across to this Bass Pro Shops tour, and I've seen a little bit of that stuff, but personally, I find it really, really hard to follow. It's a new format. The website's not that good for me to follow it, and apart from the real gold that I see on social media, I just tend to gravitate back towards that live coverage of Bassmaster. It's epic, the coverage. The fact that you're not in it some of the time makes it a little bit worse, but hey, I still love watching these young guns now hammering the hell out of them on that Bassmaster Elite Series. What's your take on how it's all laid out?
Yeah, it's been one of the best things that's happened. It's something that needed to happen, and for the viewer, for the fan, for the angler, and for the tour, it's just the greatest thing because there's just endless coverage now. Like, everyone had to pick their game up basically, and everyone's done that. FLW's doing an amazing job over there with their stuff. We are just killing it here at Bass, and MLF have got their whole deal happening, which is a totally different sort of a thing, and some people love it, some people hate it. That's just how it's always going to be. But for the hardcore bass fishermen, it's very hard to beat the format of Bassmaster, and I particularly have the same kind of feeling. I love it. I'm glued to live when I'm not on it, when I don't catch them, and just catching 5 big fish is one of the hardest things that you can do, and doing it 4 days in a row is near impossible. And some guy does it every single time, and that's what makes it so intriguing to watch. But just what I love about it is, I've always ever since I was young, I just wanted this sport to be cool. I wanted to show people why I loved it. I wanted people to feel the feeling that I get from fishing and watching it, and it's been very hard to get that across. And what you did with AFC was just massive for me and for everyone in Australia, being able to see how cool fishing was at the boats. And coming over here, it still had that, but it lacked that massive amount of coverage. And now big celebrity people know, hear, see fishing, and the content that they're getting created, nothing is at a lower level. It has to be at a peak level, and that is just good for everyone, and particularly us. And it's just a shame that I've had 4 rough finishes, because I have an opportunity, the biggest opportunity of my life in fishing right now. And unfortunately, I just had 4 bad events back to back in a row, and that's been very frustrating for me. I'm a competitor. I want to win. I hate losing more than anything on the planet, and it sucks when you work that hard and you try, but it is really a part of this sport, and it just happens, and you got to deal with it and move on. And I've got so much to look forward to. There's so much fishing ahead of us, and really I got to just get that behind me and be excited about the next event, and that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, well, that was a great attempt to steer us away from the first 4 events, but I want to talk about those in just a little bit more detail too, because I know we see some of your coverage. I know we've had an issue with the YouTube Live. I know you were pretty keen to go live in the last event, and we've had those same issues here. It's ever since that, I think it's ever since the New Zealand massacre, there's been some sort of permissions change in there, and through our Garmin cameras, we can't get it live. So give us let's start at down in Florida. You spent an elite tournament where you thought you were going to win that thing in Rodman, and it didn't happen. Give us the rundown of what happened there.
Yep. So St. Lawrence River, it had been affected massively by the hurricane, and going in there, we had a huge cold front coming in. Florida hadn't had any warm weather, and it was late in the season. They should have been spawning, but they couldn't get that weather. Well, that warm weather moved in on the very last day, the day off, and then the warm weather on the first day of the tournament. And generally, that's just not enough to like warm the water up and get the fish spawning and getting them going. Like one day is just not enough. But in Florida, that late in the season, like I learned a great lesson that one day is enough. And I got no bites, saw no fish, caught nothing in the St. John's River. It was just barren. Like there wasn't even any fish there. It was crazy. And every year, me and Kayla, when we go down to Florida, we go to Rodman's and whack a bunch of big fish. It's a fun little fishery. It's an offshoot that you can lock into from that river. And I'd learnt it really well over the past few years. So when they let us lock in there, my ears kind of pricked like, oh, I know that place. And if St. John's fish is tough, I'm going to know it. And it's a hard place to figure out because it's full of timber. So 2 days in a row, no bites on the St. John's River. I go lock into Rodman's, and I get a bunch of bites, and I find this big lily pad flat way idling in the back of this creek, and it's got big ones about to spawn on all the lily pad stems. And so I'm like, I'm set. Like, this is perfect scenario. The warm weather's coming. The bucks are already here. The females are setting up. They're only going to keep coming. And in hindsight, what happened in that tournament, that was the end of the spawn. Those fish, they were finishing up because that lake was warmer than the river, and that one day of warm weather pushed hundreds and hundreds of massive bass to the banks of these certain little areas on the St. John's River that had eelgrass and a little bit of structure for them to spawn. And the guys that went there literally had 10-pounders. Clifford Perch said he lost over 50 pounds of bass in the first half a day of the tournament. He lost 10-pounder after 10-pounder. They were so big, like he couldn't get hook sets in them. And I'm sitting here locked in Rodman's, and they actually swam away from that lily pad flat and went under the mats, which made it really hard to catch.
Yeah.
And just a crazy, just one of those things where like I'm just like this far off, and you make a bad decision. But what actually happened on that first day is I lost a 6 and a 7. I caught a 5, and I caught a couple other nice ones. I think I only weighed 3 fish, but I actually lost like a couple of really big fish. So it was enough for me to say, well, I think I can get the bite still and go back in there, and it was only getting worse.
Yeah.
And so that resulted in a super bad finish, and was so frustrating because it was like one of the most epic tournaments ever in Bassmaster history. Like they had John Cruz caught 32 pounds, and it wasn't that good because it was the third biggest 30-pound bag.
Yeah. No, I remember that. It was fantastic coverage.
And the coverage was amazing, and Rick Clun just is a freak down there, and just, he just sorts them out. They were catching giants on spinnerbaits, like 10-pounders on spinnerbaits. And, as an angler and a competitor, you got no idea what it's like to, wake up the next morning and it feels like the worst hangover of life because you've worked so hard, you've hardly slept, you've grinded. They call it a tournament hangover, and you wake up and you're so tired, and then you turn live on and you see all these areas where you were and where you practiced, and they're just catching 9 and 10 pounders like one after the other, and it's such a sickening feeling, but like you can't help but watch it. You just watch and you try and learn from it. You're like, what did I miss?
Well, mate, moving into the second event then up at Lanier, then coming into that event, you love that place. Tell us what panned out there.
That was just another frustrating one. 100%. I put my time in there. It became one of my favourite lakes last year. Prime time of the year. Not many guys had been there at that time of year. I'd had a ton of experience. I love fishing for them big spots. Everything lined up really well. And it's one of those ones where I'm honestly like scratching my head. Like the way they won and the way they caught them was the way I was fishing and was in the areas that I was fishing. And it was just like, I honestly, that was just one where I finished it and I'm like, when you're watching live and you're watching the guys doing it, it's literally exactly what I was doing. And, you know, I talked to Zaldane and a bunch of guys during practice, and a lot of guys are asking me all sorts of questions because they hadn't been there. And like Mullins and Chris and all that, Mullins caught him on a red crankbait because he saw me catch him on a red crankbait like the year before. He was like, "You caught him on the red plug?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he nearly wins it doing it, and my bite like went away. It's a lot about area, and those guys found like little special areas. And I think I you know, in tournaments like that, you can tend to know too much. And then you end up, like, when I'm fishing a spot, I'm like, oh, well, I can catch them on that point. So if you don't get a bite fast, you move. And instead of, like, grinding out certain little areas, all of a sudden you've jumped 50 spots and you haven't given any of them, like, a chance to produce for you. And that's kind of, I think, what happened to me. Like, I know in those cold conditions, you have to fish super slow. And in doing that, I have like a 5-to-5 ratio bait caster with light line on it. And when I watch, and I you know, talking to Chris, I'm like, you got to fish slow. You got to fish slow. He knows that from California. When I watched live back, he was fishing half again as slow as what I was fishing. You know, like I was thinking I was fishing slow, but he was fishing half again as slow as me. And so, you know, just a couple of good little lessons there. Just, I think I moved around too much on a cold water area. I should have got in. And I'm good at finesse, and I kind of power fished them a little bit, like with a heavier swim bait, a bigger swim bait, 10, 12 pounds straight through fluoro. And when I was dropping on fish with the Ned rig, I was using 6 and 8 pound leader for my braid. And like, I'm good enough those fish are pressured enough that going down to like 4 pound leader can make a big difference. And instead of doing that, I was just trying to find ones that were biting, you know, instead of really trying to, like, I was seeing fish on the graph, and because they wouldn't eat within a first minute or two of dropping on them, I'd move, and instead of getting over them and figuring out how to bite, I would just go to the next area. But again, I went down a stretch right near the end, and I caught a 2.5, a 3, and then a 4 3/4 near 5 pounder. And I had 4, and I needed one fish to jump into the top 30 and be fishing Saturday. And I had 2 hours to go, and I didn't get it. And like, my whole year could take a turn from that one fish. I catch that one fish, I make Saturday cut, then you're relaxed and you whack them day 3 and you're in the top 10. Like, your whole thing can change from one bite. And it's just been a year of like not getting that one bite that you need.
Yep. Let's move up to the third event of the Elite Series at Lake Hartwell. Another tournament where the fish came and rushed the banks, mate. Where was your headspace there?
Yep. That was just going to be a difficult one for me. I went and spent a week on there, and like, that's why some of these, you know, the finishes, it gets so frustrating for me, because when you work so hard and you put the time in and it doesn't pay back, it's frustrating. You're like, what do you got to do? I'm been here a long time, but you're still hitting lakes. Like, I'm still hitting lakes at different times of years that I just haven't got a lot of experience on. And I haven't fished the Carolinas much during spawn. I just haven't been here that time of year when that happens. So I did a lot of research on Hartwell. You know, I've watched every Bassmaster Classic, day 3s. I've watched live. I've watched FLWs. I've watched everything you can get and studied everything about Lake Hartwell. And no matter what you read from anything and anywhere, the top half of the lake is where it goes down. You do not go up the rivers. It just doesn't happen. You can catch them one day, you won't catch them the next. And because I didn't know the lake enough, I read into that enough and didn't allow myself to just like fish and figure stuff out. And I stayed in that top half of the lake. And literally, if you were in that top half of the lake, you didn't do very well. Like the rivers is where it played because it was the early spawn.
Yeah.
And I just got in an area where it wasn't going down. And even though, spawning fish have been hard for me, just living in Australia for 26 years and it being illegal to catch a spawning fish my whole life, and then all of a sudden now you can catch them. It has been a hard transition for me to like really love it enough to learn it to the level that I need to. But at the same time, in that area that I was, those spawning fish were like the hardest ones you could ever imagine to catch. They're moving off the bed, they come back for a second, they move. And I'm thinking, man, these guys are freaks that catch these because it's so hard. And then when I watch the footage back, the guys up the river, those fish are further along. So they literally, if they see them on a bed, they catch them within 5 minutes.
Yeah,
because
they're
the fish is locked on.
Yeah.
It's locked on. It's further along in the spawn. So, the biggest thing, you don't lose, you learn. From every one of these tournaments, I've built more brick walls to my arsenal from bad finishes. I could have had a great season so far, and I would have loved to have, but I've learnt some major lessons at 4 different fisheries that that I can take on into the future.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the last one. The one we've just had last week was the one at Winyah Bay. That was the Elite Series that you were well, within 100 and something miles of Winyah Bay, because you were leading that one. That was the first time you'd led a Bassmaster Elite event. So you must have been pretty excited coming into it. How did that one play out?
Yep. Yeah, definitely excited. I just put all my chips basically in heading down to the Cooper River, the 110 mile run. It's an insane run in a bass boat. It's so crazy. It's gonna be pretty cool to look back on one day and just see what we sort of have done and stuff. That run is just stupid to try and get back in 8 hours and catch them. But I practiced all 3 days down there. I just put everything into it. And what happened is when I got down there on the first day, the wind was blowing from the east, which is right in the mouth of Charleston Bay, like basically pushing the tide, either in or holding it back.
Yep.
And when I got down there, there was like the current wasn't pulling. There was a lot of like slime and stuff in the water, and it was really, really difficult to even get clean casts on anything. And there was like 20 elite boats on my flat where I caught them on the very first day.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that stuff's toast. So I had to sort of search around, and it was very hard to get bites, and I was kind of worried. I'm thinking, man, this is going to be tough. Like the Cooper's not like it was. Well, day 2, I go down there, and a lot of guys just bailed on it. They didn't go back, and so it had less boats, and the wind blew from the west, which it basically didn't blow. It was like light wind, so the tide was could do what it needed to do, and I basically had almost 50 bites in the one day and some giants, and I just shook them. Like I shook everything off. I literally never caught a bass.
Yeah.
It was just phenomenal, and I found 3 main areas that had them in there. And so a lesson that Jeff Creek taught me a lot of years ago was like, when you got a spot you want to run to, you don't, in the elites, you never pull up short of it. Like you don't pull, if you've got a lay down that there's fish, you don't pull on the lay down like 5 yards for it, because someone will pull up on that lay down and catch that fish. Like when you've got the stuff, drive to it and fish your juice first before you go and explore or just go fishing. And so I run down there tournament day, and I know the fuel stops, I know the run better, and I changed props to a brand new 4-blade 26 to get the speed. My boat runs 78 with that prop in the raker, and I changed it, but it was a brand new prop that they just sent me, and I forgot to open the vent holes, which allows the prop to get that traction to get you on pad. And on boat 22, so I know, and I've got 2 big fish on beds down there that I want to they're one casters. I can flip in there, catch two of them, 3 and a 4.5 pounder, and just kick my tournament off. I just got to get there first. So I'm boat 21. I know I can run. I know I'm going to get down there first. I pull out. I put my foot down, and the boat won't even get on pad. Like nothing would happen. And I didn't know what was going on. I tried and tried and tried. Couldn't figure it out. I swung around, got back in. The guys were up thinking like I had some sort of mechanical issue. But then I realised I think it's the vent holes. Now the whole field is gone. The Evinrude mechanic's gone up to get his tools. He gets back, and now I don't leave until 25 past 7. Everyone's been gone for 10 minutes. And before the first fuel stop, I passed 5 boats. I caught 5 boats.
Yep.
And I got to my fuel stop. And then by that stage, it threw me off enough to where I was like, those bedfish are done because they were suckers. They were easy ones. So I didn't even run to those fish. And then my second spot that I really wanted to get in on, there was boats hanging around it. So I pulled up short. And when I pulled up short, it kind of like allows those guys to like sort of claim that like one area. And they instead of me getting in there and catching them, I moved around that flat and weaved in and out and around and fished. And then I didn't like hunker down. And those guys that ran right to that area and fished, they all made I think 3 or 4 of them made the top 10.
Yep.
And a couple of them were basically going for the win. And and then what happened on that day 3, it also, on the first day, that same wind blew. And so when I ran in there, that current wasn't pushing, and it had that same slime, and you had to slow down with a Senko, worm, and just grind bites out. And then here I am, fishing a reaction style bait that I got 50 bites on the day before, but it's not going. Yeah. And it's so hard when you get so many bites and you get dialed in. Like I was on the coolest technique, a reaction burn and kill bite on a weedless bait. It was insane. And I was so excited about that bite that you don't want to let it go. You're like, no, there's no way it's like different. And then you get a couple bites on it and you're like, oh, okay, no, it's still going. And then all of a sudden you've only got an hour left and you haven't got a limit and you've got to mix it up. And, I had 6-something pounds, and that's just what hurt me on that first day. The next day I had almost 10 pounds, made a bit of a jump. I had the fish on to have 12, 13 and made the cut. It's just been one of those years where just those couple of game changes come off when you need them. And, I think I was just dead last in the Angle of the Year points, and I jumped up 4 spots. So I'm looking at that as a positive.
There you go, mate. The graph's headed upwards. Hey, another bit of good news, and look, I know everyone that listens to this is your Australian fans and your American fans. They know that it's all going to click for you soon, and we're looking forward to seeing more of you and fishing more days, because it must be frustrating being on the bank when other people are on the water. Yeah,
that's the worst.
Yeah. Let's talk about your jerseys. You've done jersey runs in the past, but we've got the 2019 jerseys. They're about a month away at the moment.
Nice.
You can let people know. We'll let people know this end when they're going to be available. They'll be about half the price of last time, and they're looking pretty schmick. So anyone who's your supporter that wants to help you through it, every jersey you buy, not only does it show the support, but the profits from that go to keeping you on the road and getting you one step closer to that first Bassmaster Elite Series win, don't they?
Yeah, no, it's massive, and just seeing the Aussie support is just huge for me, and I still, it's so cool. Like I see on Facebook my old jerseys from a few years ago, guys wearing them and stuff, and I don't take any of that for granted. And I get messages every single day saying, "Hey man, how can I buy your jersey?" And I just think that's so cool. So thanks to you and helping us get that on the go and making it a bit more affordable than last time when we had to get them done here in the States. So they'll be a little bit more ready, available, and more affordable in Australia. So that's going to be really cool. So just keep an eye on my social media, and I'll post the release and how you can get them, and hopefully it'll be here in about a month.
Yeah, no, good stuff, mate. And look, I'm gonna let you go there now. Just before we take off, though, just a quick shout out to your big sponsors this year that make it all happen.
Yep, of course. Steve Fields has been unbelievable for myself and me and Kayla. Hobie has just been there from the very start, and they're still our major sponsor. And 100% we would not be here without his support. It's been incredible, and I just say to him, I just hope that one day I'm up on the Bassmaster Classic stage representing Hobie, and that's going to be one of the coolest moments when that happens. So always thankful for them. Scotia got back on board again, and I see that they're in Australia, going really good as well, and they're blowing up over here. It's awesome to see, and they're just an amazing out of industry sponsor that saw what we were doing, and they've gotten back on board and been a massive support, and they just do some really cool stuff. And the boom bottle and the magic mount system is all stuff that we just use on an everyday basis. So you can get it in Australia. When I was home this year, I saw Nathan Palmer and a few of those guys had the that mount system in their truck and stuff ready to go. So I think you can get it from JB Hi-Fi or one of those
I've seen
places.
it around.
Yeah, they're starting to move in. Miller rods, we've got them going really good, and he's got all the production models going in over Australia, which is cool to see. And we've got a 20 rod range over here now. Tackle Warehouse is killing it, and we're currently just picking up new tackle stores over here. So lots of excitement around that, and also with Bassman spinnerbaits, they're also available over here now and going to go Tackle Warehouse and starting to get them in stores. So some pretty proud moments going on there. I get lots of questions about my rain suit, Mustang Survival. We're working on getting that into Australia, but they are the best rain suit that I've ever had. The only one that keeps me 100% dry. And their elite life jacket is the best. That's what every single pro fisherman wears. So they've been a huge supporter. We got TH Marine Lance Campers. We're in the brand new 1172. We'll give everyone a good rundown on the 1172. We've actually just got it set up here at Gunnersville, and we're going to go and practice out there. And we'll give you a rundown on the Bass Cat Cougar. Went to the Cougar this year rather than the Era. And I'm enjoying that. And then also just, huge shout out to Minn Kota, Humminbird, Talon, the Solixes and the Ultrex. The same thing, we'll do a full boat rundown this year. It's an absolute weapon. So
yeah, I think everyone agrees they're jealous of it.
Yeah, it's insane. It's been extremely this is the very first year I've ever had where I'm just in a great spot and just super enjoying everything that we are doing, and sponsor wise, and just all of the sides of our lives are just perfect. And then to have those 4 bad events has been super frustrating because everything else is amazing. So we won't let that get us down too much, and I'd rather finish the year strong than finish the year like I started it. We just got to warm up a little bit, and we're at Gunnersville right now. We're pre-practicing for the one in a month, so I'm doing the work, putting in the time, and we got Lake Fork in 2 weeks, which is going to be an absolute monster. It's Texas Fest, so it's a lot of excitement around that event. It's going to be huge bass, so stay on board, and hopefully we can get this year back on track at Lake Fork.
That's awesome, mate. And just one more final thing. It's just I remembered seeing something in a news feed yesterday. Your cousin's tackle shop, Fishing Bits in Toowoomba there. I don't know if you've heard, but there's been all of the crazy vegans protesting, all the farmers out here in Australia. But they threatened to protest some tackle shops in Toowoomba. My question to you is, how hard do you reckon Georgie is going to tap on the nose the first vegan that walks into his shop with a protest sign? And then will the second one follow them in?
God help the first person that walks in and does that at Chris's shop.
Yeah.
That's not gonna end well for him.
No, I don't think so.
Chris might be the stop to the whole thing. He just might put an end to the entire deal. No one will ever protest again.
Yeah, well, we'll let you know how that one plays out anyway, mate. Look, thank you very much for taking that half an hour with us and providing us that update. All of your fans really appreciate it. They like hearing it from the horse's mouth, and especially in this sort of casual, relaxed environment when you can tell the guys how it really went down. So thank you very much.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the support. Thanks for everyone that gets on board. All the likes and comments and the support, the positivity that we get from the Aussies and everyone here in the States is awesome. And we'll get this year back on track, and we'll get the Aussies on the map over here. No worries.
Thanks, Carl. Cheers, mate.
See you, mate. Bye.